Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for One Piece Season 17, Part 2, the Dressrosa Arc Conclusion, with, collections 28, 29, and 30. So, I have been enjoying this with the Blu-ray and everything, and the second part of this really got fucking nutty. There was kind of more of a little bit of a better balance around here as we started getting some culminations on certain kind of fights. I did like that we didn't leave much to chance, that we also got certain kind of backstories as well, and certain kind of executives getting taken out pretty funnily, like Sugar and Usopp. You didn't think that that was going to be like that big of a thing, but we had also gotten introduced to Kanjuro, who is the other samurai that we were looking for in Dressrosa, and seeing him pretty much just like chilling in the kind of the junkyard graveyard kind of place, and he has the ability to bring forth to life anything that he draws. However, he draws things that are... His drawing skills are not the best, but that kind of worked in Usopp's favor, as he pretty much had Kanjuro draw him his face during the whole kind of Tabasco thing to scare Sugar again, because we'd seen Luffy and Law pretty much going up against to go off against Doflamingo, while we've got other ones kind of going around. We've got Sabo dealing with Fujitora at the moment. We've got the rest of the gladiators fighting various different kind of ones of the executives. These were kind of okay. Though I kind of liked to focus mainly on the Straw Hat ones, though granted I do like Sai, Don Chao, though his fight with Lao Ji was kind of like, okay. Mainly it was kind of cool to get more of the backstories on the executives more than them themselves, though granted Frankie's and Senor Pink's fight was pretty cool, as we got his backstory and why he dresses so crazily. He has a valid kind of reason, as he was doing it to try and make his wife smile again, as she had found out that, like, he was a pirate and she hates pirates. Well, not exactly that he was a pirate, but that he didn't work at this bank. And the thing is, she had tried to get in contact with him when their child was sick, and she wasn't able to, and the child died, and it just kind of set her off. She ran out and got pretty much put into a vegetative state. However, after he was coming around and doing some kind of crazy shit, she was able to smile and everything. So that's kind of going on their man kind of fight and everything, which was still pretty interesting. The Coliseum ones were kind of not as interesting, except for Bartolomeo, who still is pretty much annoying in his fanboyism of the Straw Hats. I don't mind it. It just sometimes it derails it to a degree that it's like, oh god, come on, can we just... The issue comes in the effect that he can barely function around the Straw Hats, and that kind of slows the plot and stories to a kind of crawl before they just kind of ignore him to kind of deal with what they kind of need to deal with. But his barrier abilities really help them out. Cavendish's kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing gets into some kind of nutty kind of scenarios as well. Let's see, I did get Usopp's Hockey Awakening was pretty cool. No, there. Dressrosa Art Notes. We did have the birdcage stopping communications, which is pretty much... Doflamingo is pretty much trying to get everything to kind of stay within this kind of sphere, and that way he could pretty much retain his control. And then seeing him utilize the birdcage to even try and kill more people and take out everything and pretty much introduce more of a time constraint on our heroes was definitely a Doflamingo move to do. As this kind of went on, I do see why people kind of hold Doflamingo as kind of like a high point antagonist-wise. He is very much a dark mirror of Luffy and others as well. And then also it really puts into perspective his story along with Law's as well. And then bringing in his brother Corazon and everything with that, it was really kind of interesting. So, let's dig more into that kind of stuff. We learned that Doflamingo is a celestial dragon. We learned that his father kind of wanted to live among the humans and foolishly didn't understand what that was going to kind of entail. Because of all of the horrors and atrocities that the celestial dragons have wrought on them, the rest of the populace is like, goes completely and utterly ham. They try to kill him and kill his wife and his 2 children. And it's like, guys, don't do that. But we see that Doflamingo, he's like, where's his slaves? He very much thinks of himself above, and he doesn't see that he is in his rightful place. We see he's got Conqueror's Haki, which factors into the battle that we get into with Trafalgar and Luffy as well. But he utilized it at a very young age. He killed his own father. He brought his father's head to Marie Joie, and they wouldn't let him back in. That's where Treble and kind of the rest of the organization, Diamante, Pika, the rest kind of built themselves around Doflamingo, getting him this devil fruit and trying to pretty much ride his coattails and everything. And Doflamingo views them as his family. This also, we get Vertigo and him being pretty much put into the Navy and how that kind of works out for their kind of double agent. But yet, Doflamingo's brother, Corazon, is a double agent for the Navy working under Sengoku as a commander, I believe. And seeing how he's pretty much like putting on this kind of facade, because Law gets introduced and he's from Whitetown, and we pretty much get another instance where the world government has fucked over other people, seeing that there's got this white lead disease and everybody is pretty much getting worse and worse life expectancy and just dying off, and they wrote it for the money, both those in power and those in the government, and pretty much just then started wiping out the people from there. And it was just like, oh god, no. And Law was pretty much one of the only ones to escape. And he's like, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill as many people as possible. Pretty much dark mirror to Doflamingo, because he views that his place was taken off. This is how he kind of gets the heavenly demon kind of thing. And he just wants to destroy the world. Talking about that. And since he can't have it, he's going to do all this shit. It's like, oh god, he's rallied these people kind of to this cause. And you see that kind of manipulation that he's able to do, and just doing it for his own kind of benefits. And he kind of wanted, he even was going to use Law because, or someone like him for the Op fruit to perform this kind of perpetual youth surgery. However, the person that does this surgery pretty much gifts their life to the receiver and dies in the process. So like, oh shit. And Corazon wanted to make sure that they didn't get that, and that Law would get it, so that way he could like cure himself, because he takes them all throughout these hospitals and everybody's like, oh god, it's contagious and everything, even though it's not. And how everybody treated him, and seeing Corazon just being like breaking down, like, I know you stabbed me, because Law's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, because he just kept thunder chucking the kid into pretty much junk piles, and he's like, I just wanted to help you, man. I knew that even though you stabbed me, you were the one hurting. And seeing them bond together, and then getting the Op fruit, which then was linked back to this pirate Barrels had it, and his son is Drake. So it's like, oh damn, I love these little kind of connective things kind of going on. But we see that he needed to get some stuff off, but however, Law runs into Vertigo, and Vertigo continues to hurt the severely wounded Corazon. And then we see that Corazon pretty much uses his silence powers to pretty much hide Law, that he had force-fed the Op fruit to, but Law doesn't know how to use it yet. So he wasn't able to save Corazon, and Doflamingo kills his brother. And we see he just doesn't give a shit. It's like, god damn. So we see and understand Law's whole thing of wanting to take down Doflamingo. I was like, yeah, that works out pretty well. We also get Kyrus's backstory, him being someone that murdered people, getting the cold-blooded gladiator thing, linking pretty much everything kind of tying up. I know I didn't really hit on that much, I think, in the previous one, but I wanted to make sure I touched on it, and seeing him and his connection with Rebecca, and how everything just starts kind of spinning out. We get some nice kind of cool battles. Of course, Usopp with his Haki taking out Sugar. We get Zoro taking on Pika, which took a pretty long time, but seeing that he had learned from Hawkeye how to utilize his haki to make black blades, that was bad fucking ass. And it's really kind of funny because it's gotten to a point where I'm watching this and I'm loving seeing the other kind of characters' reactions where they're like, Pika's made this giant kind of fucking stone statue, and Zoro just kind of gets blasted through and just like cuts it, and everyone's like, ah, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then seeing Zoro take down Pika, where Pika pretty much utilizes armament haki, and Zoro just like utilizes all of his black blades and just does this amazing kind of cut that takes his ass out. It's like, yes, it took a while, but it was fucking worth it. Let's see. Nico was pretty much helping Kyros and Rebecca. Frankie taking on Senor Pink, and then being able to pretty much help the Tontada. We learned that Princess Manchuri is actually in the palace. We get kind of a little thing. Leo's able to get her and make sure that she doesn't utilize her healing tears to bring back some of the other executives. That's how Sugar was brought back up. And Leo's able to stitch together pretty much all the rest of them to make sure that they don't get away. Gladios gets pretty much fucked up by Bartolomeo. I think it was Bartolomeo. Yeah. Yeah, because they trapped himself in a barrier thing to let Nico Robin get up there to assist Rebecca as Diamante gets taken out. And we pretty much get to the point where it's pretty much Doflamingo and Treble versus Law and Luffy, but we first have to pretty much get Luffy to deal with Bellamy. And this I liked, because Bellamy has pretty much been shattered. He's being utilized by Doflamingo to pretty much try and kill Straw Hat, and Luffy's like, I'm not gonna do that. He's my friend. Now, granted, I could see that Luffy has understood that Bellamy kind of has had changes, but he still puts his faith and loyalty in someone that doesn't give a shit about him. And Luffy trying to get that point across to him really fucking hit home. It's like, Bellamy just wants to die after Doflamingo lets him go. He's like, oh, you're still alive. Fuck you, man. And this, of course, lines up with us learning more about Corazon and everything, with Law pretty much getting fucked up, losing an arm, and pretty much getting shot by Doflamingo, even though he pretty much switched someone else out. And I was like, God damn, that's kind of cold, Law. But we're going after Doflamingo here. We gotta stop this motherfucker. But Luffy then just pretty much punches him. He's like, Bellamy wanted to die. And I understand that, but the thing is, I understand putting your faith and your trust and your loyalty in someone and they don't give a shit about you, and how that hurts, and that makes you kind of question yourself. But fuck them, they're not worth it. And I like that Luffy had to kind of like fight with that and then pretty knock him out and then get to what's kind of going on with that. So the depth that they really get to showcase Doflamingo's depravity really works and really hits home. He is a multifaceted fuckhead who is just going and trying to do whatever he wants to be on top. And he has connections with Cypherpole and everything, and the world governments, and that is even brought up after his defeat, where Fleet Admiral Akiinu is like, who the fuck is above you, elder motherfuckers? And it was interesting because after everything's kind of taken out, we do kind of see that this Aegis Zero Cypherpole has Rob Lucci, has Kaku, has spawned him. It's like, you little fuckers. So that was a kind of cool thing. Sabo also gets his backstory in as we see him training up with the Revolutionary Army, that he had amnesia and then got all his memories back on the day that he learned about Ace's death and how horrendous that was. And we also see him fighting Jesus Burgess, Blackbeard's kind of dude, and just kind of really whooping his ass. Let's see here. So those were pretty much good. We're getting into our culminations. Luffy has dealt with Bellamy. He's working with Law. Law's utilizing some stuff that's really fucking up Doflamingo, this kind of gamma knife. And Doflamingo is then utilizing his string powers to kind of try and pretty much stitch himself together. But then we see Luffy pull out Gear 4, the fourth gear form, and that was pretty fucking epic, and the animation really fucking takes off with that shit as he goes into kind of bounce man form and really starts like doing some crazy ass shit to kind of fight Doflamingo. However, he has pretty much been going full tilt and utilizing his haki like a motherfucker, and he kind of runs out as Doflamingo introduces us into another kind of interesting aspect of devil fruits, i.e. the awakening of powers, where he is utilizing his string power to turn everything around him into strings. As the bird's cage is closing, Luffy's on a time limit. It's like, ah, shit. And he's pretty much got 10 minutes to get his hockey back to pretty much take his ass out in kind of one punch. And we see the announcer dude helping him out. We see Sabo taking out Jesus Burgess, who is trying to get the Gum fruit powers and also trying to get the Flame fruit powers, as everything's kind of pretty much culminating. People are trying to stop the birdcage. Zoro and the rest of the sword wielders are pretty much infusing their blades with haki to try and stop the birdcage from closing. Frankie is working with the Sea Prism Stone Smile Factory, which has been fucked up by the Tantara, and trying to push that as well. And it's cool because they're able to kind of stop it at least for a little bit, but it's still pretty much just a stopgap at this measure, as we pretty much get Luffy back into his hockeyed up state, gets into Gear 4, and utilizes the King Kong gun, and just fucking slams the fucking shit out of Doflamingo, and it's beautiful. I was like, fuck yeah, it's just that culmination, it works very well with what's going on. Now, could there be spots where they could have pretty much trimmed certain things? Sure. However, I wouldn't take out any of the backstories or anything else kind of going on with the fighting of what was going on. I thought it was well paced enough. Though, granted, I'm kind of afraid of what kind of goes on with the Wano Country one, because that is going to be a beefy motherfucker. Though I'm looking forward to it. We also got Baby Five's backstory, which was interesting as an executive, because she pretty much wants to be helpful to anyone, and they actually gave a valid reason, because her mother and the rest of the people are like, just let her die. She's just an extra mouth to feed. It's like, god damn. They did very good jobs of connecting and giving stories to all these characters, or at least all these kind of ones that I didn't think that they would go into, like Senor Pink and Baby Five. We didn't really get much with Lao G, Diamante. Treble, with his whole kind of loyalty to Doflamingo, was definitely interesting, and learning that the reason people were able to hit him was because of how skinny his ass was kind of interesting. Which is kind of echoed again in the next one, in the Zhao arc, with Luffy and a ball. So we'll see what goes on with that. We also learned that Aokiji is with Blackbeard for some reason, and it's like, what the fuck? And that we get a cool intro to Kaido. Now, I'm waiting to see, because he pretty much flops himself off of an island, and then accidentally lands onto a Sky Island, and lands on another one that is with Eustace and his kind of pirate alliance. It's like, holy fucking shit. And just seeing how big, it's like, god damn, this is the Emperor that we've been talking about, and pretty much setting up for this big kind of confrontation, because taking out Doflamingo and his operation of Smile, all of his gun running, setting up pretty much the world to be almost in a constant state of perpetual war to kind of like destroy it. It's like, okay, how do those aims line up with Kaido and everything? And we see Doflamingo pretty much being locked up, being like, let's see how this works out. And I want a paper every day to see this shit. We also see Fujitora pretty much take on Luffy, and it was kind of interesting because Luffy is like, come on, even though you're in the Navy, I still like you. And just the laugh that Fujitora gives of like, god damn, as they're pretty much going pretty much ham, and he pretty much is utilizing pretty much the destruction of Dressrosa to make this giant ball to pretty much launch shit at him. It's like, shit. But then we see that like Luffy had... They called it that he kidnapped Rebecca, but he pretty much just gets her to Kyros, as Kyros was pretty much up this lie to pretty much let Rebecca be okay. However, Fujitora is able to hear, like, yeah, we knew. All the people in Dressrosa knew, but they didn't give a shit. They just went along with it, so that way it worked for everybody. But Rebecca wants to be with her father, which was nice. One kind of criticism I have is that they kind of do a lot of flashbacks and callbacks to kind of previous stuff. However, I think it's mainly in the way that I'm consuming it at this point. Granted, if I was doing this episode by episode, week by week, and depending upon it, how many kind of hiatuses could have potentially been within this arc, I definitely get needing to be reminded of certain kind of things. So, it's a criticism I have, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, because I'm like, okay, I just saw this because I'm going through this boom, 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 boom. That's how I'm consuming it, so that's more on my consuming how I'm consuming it more than what's kind of going on with it. Though granted, they do at certain kind of points take up more on the flashbacks that I think that they needed, or they could have just been like, oh, okay, here we go. But we see that they're just pretty much playing up that, like, Luffy has kidnapped Rebecca and pretty much utilized themselves as human shields to protect the Straw Hats and the Coliseum Pirates from reprisals from Fujitora. And Fujitora's like, alright. And the thing is, he's pretty much played this off. He apologizes to King Riku on broadcast and pretty much fucks over the Navy. Aki Ino is fucking pissed and says, you don't come back unless you bring in Straw Hat. You don't step foot on any kind of Navy base. We get Sengoku kind of popping up and be like, I eat rice crackers and I'm an Inspector General. Whatever, man. Let's see. But after that, the biggest kind of important thing is that we get the Straw Hat fleet made. Oh, and we also get that Usopp statue that's like linked up that as well. But the formation of the Straw Hat fleet is actually really cool. It's pretty much the next kind of evolution of what's going on with Luffy and attempting to become king of the pirates. He's like, I don't want you guys to be beholden to me. If you need help, I'll help you. If I need help, I know you'll help me. And he just wants to be the most free. And seeing him kind of utilize that in action is really nice. And the thing is, the people are just like, fuck it. They do their own kind of sake ritual. Zoro and the rest of them drink the good sake. And Reggie's like, this is pretty good too. But it's funny because Luffy does the stuff his way and they do their stuff their way. And seeing how they're kind of linked out and put under each other, that we're getting pretty much the giants that are getting ripped from pretty much... Okay, I've already started the Zhao arc. So I don't... See, this is where I get bleed over effect that sometimes happens. But, like, Hyruujin wants to go and get some other buddies and create his own kind of, like, giant pirate fleet kind of thing, but still sailing with under the Straw Hats as well. And it was really just kind of cool to see these weird, wacky motherfuckers from a tournament arc get brought into the story like this. This is where playing with those conventions, I think, work very well for Oda and the story that he's crafting here. It's not just like a crazy, stupid tournament arc that you kind of just go in. There's actual nice repercussions as they were saved by Usopp and the Straw Hats, and they want to return that favor, and they kind of gel. Like, they don't get put in completely within the Straw Hat crew. We get our main kind of crew that Luffy wants to have, but they're still connected, and I just kind of want to see how they kind of work out that way. But it's funny because Hyruujin pretty much is going to take the kind of stuff from Warlord Buggy, so that was pretty kind of funny to see. And that's more in the Zhao arc, but let's see. Any kind of more big kind of moments, because I want to get on the moments and how I think this kind of works out. I do love that kind of slow build-up that we're getting with Kaido, and how it's kind of working and we're getting nice payoff. The thing is, you have to be careful with being like, you got this dude in the background. You don't want to do that too long and then just be like, hey, here's this motherfucker. You want to have your teases. You want to get and learn new information, and then seeing them kind of in action, and then get to the kind of point where the conflict actually hits into high gear. And I don't think we're taking side quest-itis on this. Everything's kind of building on itself, which is very well done, in my opinion. It's not like, oh, Luffy's just going ADHD and going here and going there. It gets all connected with what's kind of going on. We see that he got fucked over in Sabaody. He trained for 2 years. We see that kind of change up, because normally Luffy would have just backed his head against that wall and just fucking blasted through it. But the Ace's death changed that. And his loss of the Straw Hat crew at Sabaody changed that, so he's able to kind of think a little bit better on that. Granted, not all the time, because Law's kind of got to rein his ass in for all this kind of stuff, but Fishman Island, go from Fishman Island to Punk Hazard finally building up and rolling on to Dressrosa rolling up, seeing what's going on with Zhao, and then Cake Island and Wano Country and Egghead. I love how this story is unfolding and how we sit with these characters, and even characters that are just supporting for an arc or so. We learn about Vivi and Alabasta. We learn about Correa when we get Chopper. We get all of these things that these characters aren't, yes, could potentially be here for just an arc, but and then they kind of live their own lives, and then they can come back when it's important for the plot. It's very hard to do that, so I need to call that out and say, this story of One Piece knows what it's doing with that. Now, I'm only in the anime at this point. I don't know how it's kind of done in the manga, but granted, you kind of need to have the manga be able to do that too in order to adapt it like this. And granted, there are probably certain kind of changes between the manga and the anime to kind of have some kind of differences, but I have to hit it that I love the progression of what's going on here. And Doflamingo was a very kind of big kind of thing. I'm like, okay, we had Horty Jones. That motherfucker was a motherfucker. Ah, shit. Fuck Caesar. And then we got Doflamingo, and he's afraid of Kaido. I'm like, I cannot wait to see what kind of goes on with that and what his objectives are and everything kind of going on. Though, granted, I think him kind of dropping in on the like alliance that was going to try and go after Shanks was kind of like, and that's the thing. I know Kaido's arc. How is it going to fucking go along when the Straw Hats have to deal with Shanks? Like, that's going to be one that's not going to fall within this kind of category. And I'm just thinking of the possibilities, because I don't think it's going to be just a complete, like, that Shanks is going to be a horrible kind of person. I mean, he's not the most morally upstanding, probably, but he's got his own code and everything that he goes on, you know what I mean? I don't think he's going to be like Caesar experimenting on children. Doflamingo, who's attempting to pretty much destroy the world. Kaido, whose objectives I'm not quite clear on at the moment. Those his aligned close enough for Doflamingo to do things. Who the fuck is able to pretty much go above the five elders' heads in the world government? Because Akihino was calling out on that. All this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, this is what kind of excited me about Game of Thrones when it was in its peak, in its prime, books and the show. Where you're wondering what's going on with the world, what the world building is, except I think we've got a better shot at this one concluding. So I'm kind of glad that I'm like here. And I know that there's like, this was like episode 700 or whatnot, and we're into 1,100 something, but I love this because you can get people into this in various kind of ways. You can have your casual kind of person that's just in it for certain kind of story beats, certain kind of story arcs, maybe some action, maybe some adventure, maybe a little world building here or there. Then you get your people that are really deep into the lore, that want to get into the poneglyphs, want to get into the blank century, who want to see everything kind of connected. And granted, I'm into shows that can do stories that can do any of these things, which have great characters, great plot, great action, and like build and have the momentum that is so interconnected that this story has. Like, I knew that people had been talking about it before, and that one person that I've been talking with had like recommended this, but once I actually fell into it, I'm like, oh my god, this is like one of those key things that I would hold up and be like, this. Like, I want this thing right here. Even with certain kind of issues that kind of have happened in this, they're not gigantic, big, and deal-breaking. It's more almost like sometimes the kind of like issues that come up with any kind of anime or adaptation in general. Just sometimes happens. It doesn't dilute the greatness of the story and the characters and everything for me, which is great. Now, granted, that can be a problem for other people. That's fine. But, and if you're like, screw your recommendation, fine. That's okay. If you don't like this, that's alright. I'm completely fine with that. Just, some things are not for everyone. But this would be one that I would hold up because of it ticks all the boxes for me. And I love the ride that I'm on. And I can't wait to see what else is going on. Especially to see our characters get back together with the Straw Hat crew and see what's going on with Nami, Brook, Momonosuke, and Chopper, and Sanji, and all of them. I need the Straw Hats back together. It's like, the thing is, the way I'm watching it, I'm like, we just did the 2-year time skip. I'm like, yeah, but I've been eating through a fucking shitload of these episodes. That's yeah, I'm going kind of nutty on it. Though, granted, I think I got past the point where I could technically play that game. But since I am now on collection 31, I have 31, 32, 33, and 34. And then I would pretty much be waiting out for the other ones. Finishing off pretty much Whole Cake Island. Wano Country is going to be a fucking long-ass one, but it'd probably be 10 collections if they collect about 20-some episodes apiece. That fucker's like 200, right? Yes, I know I'm kind of talking to myself, but it's my kind of process. So, I do recommend this arc, even though it is a long one. I had to break it up because, for the love of fuck, trying to keep all of this straight for 100 episodes, I think does a disservice to certain kind of stories in it. That's why probably when I'm going to do like at least the first half of like Whole Cake Island, and then when I get to Wano, I'm going to potentially, if it is close to about 200 episodes, just the phone real quick. No. There. Mm. 191 episodes. So, for government work, I'm going to call it 200. I'm going to probably chop that up into about batches of 50? I've heard that it follows a kind of 5-act structure. So if I could even get it clacked down to that, and essentially cut it up according to its acts that go on, that would help tremendously. Because, think about this. I would have to watch pretty much 200 episodes and then do one review on that thing. There's gotta be a fuck ton of shit that goes on in there. Well, transformations and everything. Fourth Gear was really good. I can't wait to see what else kind of like pops up with it. That was a really good one. And utilization in combat was just popping on. So, I would definitely recommend this for the action, the characters, the world building, and the plot. Everything that was going on in it. I'm like, where are we going off next, Straw Hats? So, those are my opinions on the second part of the season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.